Welcome back to Travel Like an Oching. Thank you for all of my returning viewers and any new ones that may be with me today. On this one, pros and cons for my Virgin Cruises adventures on Scarlet Lady. Before I do that, I do want to say that I encourage anyone and everyone to book a cruise on the Scarlet Lady and to find out some of these things on your own. With that, we will talk about the pros and cons right after this. Although this wasn't its inaugural cruise, it was by far the largest cruise they did since they came to the United States. Regardless of whether it's their first cruise or 400th cruise, some of the service or issues should have been ironed out by this point. Then at the end of that, I'll make kind of an overall evaluation of how I thought the cruise went. I encourage you to experience these cruises on your own. People, whether they're new to cruising or have a lot of cruising under their belt, may feel different about some of the things that I talk about here. I did get an opportunity to talk to scores of people on the cruise and get some of their feedback on some of the things that I'll be talking about here. I don't think there's a statistically significant number of people I spoke to. However, the anecdotal stories of people I think are just as important, and you can draw your own conclusions based off of that. I believe the cruise was about 70% full, which is far better than a lot of the other cruise lines. She is the first ship off the line for Virgin Cruise Line. She was built in the Italian shipyards back in 2017. Due to the pandemic, her maiden voyage was pushed out many times. In December of 2021 was by far her largest complement of passengers and crew. So this was the real test to see if all of her operational efficiencies have been worked out and if all of the procedures were in place. And this was the first true test. Alright, let's talk about the Scarlet Lady. First I want to talk about my likes. My time on the Scarlet Lady was for a 5-day adventure. To start with, the embarkation process was as smooth as I've seen so far on any cruise line. I believe what made it successful was the fact that they had small batches of people moving through their system, and they had everything set up so that as those small batches of people got into their pipeline and moved through the process, by the time they got to the next segment, they were already set to go, and they were easily expedited onto the ship. If you get in there during your time, they first ask you to queue up, and then they have you sign up for your COVID test. And the cruise line is providing that test, and it's happening right then and there. You get pulled in, they do the swab, and then you get into the next queue. The uniqueness of this is by the time you get through to the next station, which is looking at your documentation and getting you ready to get on board, results for your COVID test has already come in. Getting your wristband validated and turned on and checked. And after that process, you're expedited to get directly on board to the ship. And they just take a look at your ID and you're aboard the ship. I hope other cruise lines adopt that system to get people moved on. I want to point out the great, friendly, professional staff that was on the ship. There was at no time that I feel that I was bothering them. They were always smiling. They were always available to help. I had no problem with that. I can't understate my happiness once I got into my room. Pretty modern in its look. One of the things that happened as soon as I opened my door, your curtains open up automatically. The television is run by an iPad device, which is provided for you in the room. You can also change the mood of your room or the coloring or the highlights of your room, whether it be red, pink, purple, whatever it is, whatever your mood is, all controlled from your remote. It was great. Virgin uses the concept of a bar tab. And the way this bar tab works is you put money on an account and it's there for you to spend on the ship. The great thing about the bar tab is it's not limited to just the bar. You could use the bar tab for any purchase on the ship as you go along. With traditional cruising, if you have a drink package, that's the only thing you could use that for. So you purchase drinks for 7 days. If you don't drink on that package, that money is lost to you. The difference is if you purchase something with this bar tab, you can also use that same money to buy a gift in the gift shop or to spend it on anything that's on the ship. So it's very versatile. You're not limited to only using your bar tab on bar related items. All the eateries were great that I was able to hit. I must say I didn't hit all of them, but the ones that I did hit were excellent. But I do have to point out as one of my likes is that the Korean themed restaurant was exquisite. I mean, it was really, really good. Some of the reasons why I liked it was the concept is you bring a group of people together and you may not necessarily know each other. So you'll have 6 people, in my case it was 5, sitting at a table and you don't necessarily know each other. And you're walked through this great meal experience where you order your food, you have conversations with people you don't know, which is great, and you play Korean grill games. I mean, you play a counting game. It's pretty interactive. The people around you are shouting and getting all the high energy, and you're just having a full experience with your meal.
The game is very simple, very easy. It's counting game. So we will counting the number. Okay. We will counting starting from 1 to everybody will counting clockwise. But we have the number that you cannot say, you cannot mention. Instead of saying that number, you just need to clap. Okay, you need to remember the number, number 3, number 6, and number 9. 369. 369. Prime numbers. Yeah, but not multiple. Not multiple, only everything with number 3, everything with number 6, everything with number 9.
So divisible by?
Not multiple.
So 13
it's
or
a number
16.
Example, 1, 2, you have 3, you clap. 4, 5, you have 6, clap. 7, 8, 9, you have 9, clap. So 3, 6, 9, 13, 16, 19, 23, 26, 28. No, it's simple. It's simple. Everything you have number in it 3 or 6 or 9, you clap.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yep.
Yeah. You got it, sir?
No, but I'll be drinking. I don't mind. I don't mind.
Wait, if I do that, do I get to drink more? Because I'm all about that kind of club.
No, we will try it. This is just to have some idol with you, with your family, with friends. Alright? So you start number 1, clockwise. Only everything number 3, number 6, number 9, you clap.
1,
2,
3.
You were very good at quiet game word.
So
she's got a drink, right?
Yeah, no, okay, you out from the game, alright? So you relax. You will start over again. Number 1. No, number 1.
2, 4.
Oh yeah.
7,
6.
Another glass. You might get that on purpose. Let me get the drink here. 80. Oh no, no, she's okay. 81. 82. 84. 85. 87. 88. Not.
Hey, 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 hey.
I found it very enjoyable to be in that situation. It was a great concept, and I have to call out the Korean barbecue as one of the best eateries on the ship. This next one is probably a little strange to hear, but in light of everything that's going on with COVID, I think you'll appreciate it. One of the things that I absolutely enjoyed about this ship is that all of the surfaces were immaculately cleaned. And there is a lot of stainless steel on that boat, and at no time did I find fingerprints, smudges, dullness due to not cleaning. You always saw ship personnel with rags and solutions. They were always spraying stuff down, always cleaning the walls everywhere. Clean, very clean. Very rare to see that when you touch surfaces, they didn't feel gritty. They were on top of it all the time, and I certainly appreciated that. I think you'll get a chuckle at this next one. One of the biggest joys I found on this boat, this new concept boat, is the fact that the restrooms, the toilets were huge. I mean, they were really big. Not only were they big, but they were raised off the floor higher than most. So if you're an older person and you have problems bending your knees to, get down and sit on the commode, that was not the case with this ship. All the toilets, from the public loo to your cabin suite loo, were of great size, great height, and on top of that, in the cabins, the showers were incredible. They had rain head showers as well as very powerful handheld wands. Water pressure was excellent. The water temperature always came up. I always had a hot shower. In general, the bathrooms were spacious in their design. I certainly appreciated that. One of the things I liked, I kind of backed into it, and I have to say that I backed into it because I was so busy doing my work on Travel Like an Oching. I didn't even really pay attention to some of the themes. So I went to a restaurant one night and I noticed that everyone was wearing red. I was like, did I miss a memo somewhere? Everyone's wearing red, and I certainly did. It was broadcasted throughout the day, and it was in the daily paper that the ship had to let you know that they have a velvet themed night. So one of the nights is an all red theme. So if you got your best red outfit, go ahead and pack it. You'll be able to use it for that night. That night was an amazing fun night, full of getting involved with the ship, and they played games, and it was a ton of fun, music, and they were giving out free drinks, and I mean, it was a great time. Everyone's spirits were up, but there is a velvet night, and I was unaware of it because I was mostly doing work for the channel and editing and not really paying attention to things around me. So when I did encounter everyone wearing red, I was able to quickly run back up to my room and put on some red and enjoy it in the fun. I don't want you to feel that you have to wear red. There were certainly people who didn't dress up for the theme, but it's just one of those things that when you discover it, it just makes you chuckle because now you're a part of the fun, but you could have missed it simply by not paying attention. What I really enjoyed about this cruise was it was a mask-free event. The fact that this cruise was set up so that no one under 21 was on the cruise. That's one layer or aspect that I enjoyed. One great venue on the ship that's unique to the Virgin line is the tattoo parlor. I certainly appreciated that sentiment because I'm on a back-to-back cruise. Virgin being my first cruise, then I'm going to be on Royal Caribbean as my second cruise, and on my third cruise I'm going to be on Carnival. So the fact that I would have got a piercing on my Virgin cruise as my very first cruise then that would keep me out of the pools. However, I had the 2 additional cruises coming up with Royal and Carnival, and I would have really been messed up because I would have gotten my piercing. The piercing takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal, so I would have certainly ruined my chances or ruined my fun on the other 2 cruises had I got my piercing. And I certainly appreciated the professionalism and the concern of the piercer and tattoo artist who refused to give me the piercing because of my future plans. And that's for a certain size. But if you are interested in some art and you're on the cruise, I wouldn't give it a second thought. It's something that it's worth taking a look at if you'd like to try that. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this cruise was every single night in my room was a carafe of water as well as a bucket of ice, and I didn't have to ask for it. That's a pretty unique thing that you don't see on most cruises. Either you have to ask for it and it takes away from your drink package that they supply you these things, or you have to remember to ask because by the time that you want the water or you want some ice, it's already off hours or it's late in the night and it's too late to call your room attendant to do that, or you have to get room service involved. It just seems like an imposition to have to do it after the fact. The fact that they think about that up front as their standard operating procedures by getting you some water and ice, I think is a great thing to point out about what the cruise does for its sailors, for its guests. So this next thing, I didn't think I would like, and I thought it was just a little gimmick, but it certainly was enjoyable to the point where I spent several hours using this particular thing they had in the room available for us. So if you have a balcony cabin, they have hammocks, and these hammocks are comfortable. Again, this concept of being a big guy and not trusting these types of things, I was hesitant to get in the hammock, but once I got in and it was comfortable and it was easy to get in, and you have the rocking and the natural swaying of the boat, the slight rocking and swaying of the boat. I spent hours, and the first time I was in it, I fell asleep, and it was probably one of the most relaxing things I did during the cruise was to spend time in my hammock, and that was on my balcony, and you had the ocean going and the breeze, and it was wonderful. One aspect that I certainly enjoyed was the fact that they didn't charge you money for a pool towel, and their towels were large, fluffy, and they were everywhere, and you didn't have to worry about checking a towel out or being charged $25 if you didn't return it. They were abundant. And maybe Virgin will change their mind on this policy, but as of right now, you get as many towels as you want. They're comfortable, they're great, they're large, they're everywhere. In any of the pool areas, you can request your bedroom attendant or your room attendant to bring you some of these towels. It's a great comfort to have when you're on a cruise, to know that you have access to the pool towels without having to mortgage your home to be able to use them. So that was really positive. The final item was, it was very easy to settle your bill. You really didn't have to sit in many lines, and as long as you had your card on file, everything was done behind the scenes, and it was pretty seamless. So those are the aspects that I liked most about my Virgin cruise. Now for the dislikes. Now I want to say, before I get into this list, a lot of these things you're going to hear, you may not think they're a big thing. And I want to say overall, well, I'll give you my overall impressions after I give you my dislikes. You heard my likes and how I talked about them. I will similarly do that with my dislikes. Okay, let's get started. One dislike for me was the fact that you had to make a reservation for every meal. And when I say every meal, I'm saying at the very least your lunches and your your dinners. Now, the concept they have on the ship is they don't have formal dining areas or formal dining space. What they do have are eating venues, and they're spread out across the ship. And there's several of them, and they're based off of themes. So you have Korean, you have Italian, you have kind of a avant-garde New Age type thing. You have a vegetarian-based eatery, so forth and so on. And what you have to do is you have to book time on these, because obviously everyone can't go to the same to one eatery at a time, and you have to therefore book some time in the places you want to eat. Now, I was slow to this because I'm so used to either my time dining or buying a dining package where I don't have to worry about this type of pre-planning. I just simply get my package, get on the ship, and then say when I want to show up. Here, one restaurant, for example, I wanted to go to the Italian restaurant the first night. I just didn't book it as soon as I got on the ship, and I saw long lines of people kind of jockeying for position, and I was kind of spaced out, and I didn't do it. And what they were doing was they were getting their reservations. So I finally got a clue, got into a queue, and said I would like to have that reservation, and they said you can't have it because we're full and you have to pick someplace else. I did pick the Razzle Dazzle, which is the vegetarian option, which I didn't think I'd enjoy, but I will tell you it's probably one of the best restaurants on the ship. And here's a secret hack: you can get bacon. So it is vegetarian and it is vegan. If you want to go that route, but for many of us who are true meat eaters and we want to just pretend we're being out there and eating vegetarian, you could always add bacon. So I'll say that. But Razzle Dazzle was great. And again, I mentioned that you also have to make reservations for lunch. So there is kind of a common eatery location that you can go to, but after the first 1 or 2 times, you want to extend your palate a little bit. You have to make reservations to get into these other the same places for lunch. So now you're competing for either lunch reservations or dinner reservations. It can be a little bit stressful. So I really didn't care for that. A huge dislike I had was the incredibly small portions that they had. Now, this is more of a pet peeve than it is a complaint, but the proportions were tiny. There's no limit on how many times you can get food, but they certainly set it up so that it's a psychological challenge for you to ask for more food, because everything is done by order. So you sit down, you make an order with with one of the wait staff, and they go off and they go get it for you. That seems like it's a normal thing, but if you have a situation where you have a ton of people coming in and you have limited wait staff who has to process all of your orders, and they're writing these orders down and they're going to get you the stuff, and then they come back with a tiny plate of food. Maybe it's great for some folks, but it was extremely small for me, and I was not gonna ask for seconds and thirds of these people, because they were running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to make sure they got orders for all the individuals. That backs into my second dislike, was the fact that even though they were writing down orders, they were just getting them wrong. So you would say you would want 4 items to come back with 3. Hit or miss on whether they would get you your beverage or you get your beverage. And if you sometimes got up, and I was a lone cruiser on this cruise, and I left my table, then someone else would sit down, even though the waiter had written down my number of that table and went off to serve someone else, then to circle back to me, and then someone else is sitting there. They don't really say, why are you here? This is someone else's table. They basically just say, well, what's your order? And they forget about your order. And then you're awkward because you went to get your drinks and you got 3 drinks in your hand, you're trying to sit down, and someone's sitting at your table, and you're not getting a backup from the waitstaff person who just simply started to take the order, and the new person sat down after they wiped the tables down. So it's just, I don't like playing that game. They weren't really efficient with taking an order. And this isn't a one-off. On several occasions that I had meals, I'd ask for certain things, and either they were missing or they just didn't bring it, or when they did bring it, it was awkward. So I dislike that whole process, so I wish they could improve upon that. One of the things that I really missed on this ship, and it was glaring to me at some point, was the fact that they had no reading room or library. But if you think about it, everywhere on this ship, there were, cozy places, cozy nooks to sit down, places to relax, to read, so forth and so on. But there was always background music. There was no place that was just quiet that you can go other than your cabin. Now, yes, I could have gone back to my cabin and had this type of space, but I really wanted a public space to just sit down and relax without having background music or anything, whether it's to play board games or what have you. Again, you could do that on this ship in a common area, but it tended to be loud, there tended to be music. It wasn't the same music throughout the ship. They tried to create moods with different types of music in different areas of the ship. But in creating that type of space, you've edged out the other end of the spectrum, where there are some people who just want quiet or calm, and that was hard to come by. My biggest complaint, absolute biggest complaint, is the tiny pool. In the water area, one side had the hot tubs and kind of this oval, or the circular pool with 4 segments in the middle that people would kind of sit in and enjoy. And on the other side, they had like the pool proper. I have challenges with both of these. So with the pool proper, it was small. Number 2 of that complaint is that there were no steps to get onto the platform before you're introduced to the pool. You may not think that is a big thing, but I can tell you that I bared witness at least one time to an older person who was trying to navigate with their wet feet to step up out of the shallow water area onto this platform, then step down onto the deck of the pool, and they just slipped and they bought it. They fell. It scared me. It scared the bartenders. The pool deck hands ran over to see if they were all right. Fortunately, they were okay. They were more embarrassed than anything else. But if you have any issues with your knees, or it's tough for you to take big steps, this pool area was not an area that you would have liked. And I just don't understand why they designed it the way they did. I know there are design decisions that they always make. In this case, this was just plain bad. Another aspect that I really disliked about this cruise experience was the use of their app. I understand it's new and they're trying to make it better, but the app was horrible. I can't express to you how bad it was. It did certain things well, so I'm not going to totally trash it. It did things well, such as if you wanted to quickly take a look at what bars you've been in and keep a running tab of your bar tab or your balance. It did that well. It did a reasonable job about giving you some daily affirmations and sayings and positive things about what's going on the ship, or some quotes or some motivational things. But other than that, it was useless. It was hard to make reservations. They have a feature that if you're traveling with someone or you meet someone, you could share your QR code with that person, and they are put into your app, so you can have conversations with them. So conceptually, that's a great idea. But the problem with that is, number one, if you know someone, there's no way to just put their name in or their cabin number in, and then you can add them that way. Now, there may be a security issue with that, but even with the QR code, if you don't, if you don't share your code with someone, you're not going to be able to contact them. It was just really quirky the way you had to hook up with the other person to make sure that you were on, that you got them into your app so that you can talk to them. And once you had them in and you were listed and you were established, there was no real way to chat. You couldn't call them. It was weird. It was a wasted bit of technology for me, or at least it wasn't well thought out. I'm sure in future iterations of this we'll figure it out, but I really didn't like it, and that's just one example of the challenges I had with this app, and I'm sure they're going to fix it in the future, but right now it really isn't ready for prime time, and it caused me more frustration than I was able to successfully use it and navigate it, so didn't like that too much. So earlier in my likes, I described how much I loved the designs of the bathrooms, having large commodes and showers and so forth and so on. Now the negative side of that is bathrooms are impossible to find. Now, yes, once you get into them, they're great, but I challenge you to be able to find them in public places. It is so hard to have them tucked in to the weirdest places. They're not well marked out, or there isn't signage to point you to these public restrooms. And I know it's part of their design to kind of keep things tucked away, but when you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to the bathroom. I remember one time I was up in the pool area and I needed to go to the bathroom, and if you saw the design, I mean, it's a pretty cool design where as you're walking towards the doors to head out of the pool area, you see they have the gyms on both sides of the pool, so people are exercising and watching you, and you're watching them, so on and so on. So with that, all that space is taken up. There were no bathrooms. So what you have to do is you have to go in, past the elevators, look around, and the bathrooms are tucked way into the corners. I had to ask the ship person on a couple occasions where the bathrooms were. The first time they said, you just go down here, here, and there. Just kind of get some vague instructions. I tried to find it. Mind you, I have a biological reason that I have to find this room, so I'm under a certain amount of stress to find the facilities, and then I couldn't find what they were telling me, and then I went back frustrated, found someone else and said, listen, don't just tell me where it is, I need you to show me where the bathrooms are. And they, this time the person walked with me, showed me exactly where they were, and I was like, are you kidding me? It's tucked in. And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, well, that's where it is. If you gotta go, go. And so I didn't have any accidents or anything like that, thank goodness. But it's just very frustrating to find the bathrooms, and that's not only on that area of the ship, it's everywhere, right? And there are bathrooms where you don't expect bathrooms, and there aren't bathrooms where you expect bathrooms, and it can be stressful during your day if you have to worry about if you're going to find proper facilities to be able to use. So I wish they would fix that. And finally, I want to talk about this is a small one because overall it was a great cruise to start. I will say that of the crew, I mentioned this earlier, this was their first cruise with a full complement of crew and the highest number of guests on board, and as a result they didn't have many ports, and that's my complaint, as my final complaint, that we only had 2 ports, and one of them was Bimini, which is it's not their island, but it's the cruise lines kind of go to port their itineraries, and that meant that they only had one other port that they went to. Now I will say, as a plus, a time in port was long, so we had a nice long day in port, but we only visited 2 of them. So on a 5-day cruise, the majority of that was at sea. Now I do understand the itineraries moving forward are going to be 7 or 8 days in length, and there'll be more port destinations. And when they get that figured out, I think it's going to be a much better experience. But for me to only have the 2 ports, one of them being your private island, or in this case private area in Bimini, it just didn't do it for me. I would have much rather had more flexibility to go to other locations and enjoy those locations. So all in all, what does this mean? In summary, I'd have to say that I did enjoy my cruise overall. I understand the challenges they were facing in trying to put together a cruise that hit on all high marks, and they were doing a lot of things that were new to cruising, and I think they hit the ball out of the park. The things that I talked about in my dislikes, they were small, and if they just addressed some of them, I think it would make a much better experience. I am definitely going to give the cruise line another opportunity because I think it's fair to do so. It definitely felt like they were shaking out the crew this time, and my expectations weren't as high as they could have been, but I certainly made some comments on what I thought. I had the privilege to talk to several crew members at length about their jobs and what they're doing and what their expectations are, and several of them told me that they work on other cruise lines and they really enjoy working for this one, for Virgin Cruises, and they're just looking forward to future cruises with them. The great thing I like about this cruise line too is they're offering great incentives for future cruises. I wish they would. The one thing that they don't have in place now is a loyalty program, and from what I understand is as they're moving forward, they're going to develop that. The good news is because the folks who went on these early cruises, they're automatically in that loyalty program, and I hope they don't make the mistake of not having a loyalty program and saying, well, everybody is our valued customer and you're all special, because when everyone's special, then no one's special, right? So it's kind of like high priority mail. If you make all your mail high priority, then none of it is high priority. So I do like the aspect of separating folks a little bit and giving your most loyal customers incentives to stay loyal and to move up through the ranks. And I hope they continue delivering that. Next year around this time, around the November, December time frame, I will take another cruise, and that one I'll be more critical because they should have shaken out some of these cobwebs that they had during this cruise. So I'm going to give them a pass this time around because I think they did a good job overall. There are certainly some operational things they need to address. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix some of these structural things like locations and restrooms and that pool area, which I really thought was not only bad design but potentially very dangerous for folks, especially if you've had a couple of libations and you're pickled a bit and you're trying to navigate through that area. It's just really hard to do that. So I hope they address that in some way. I really don't know how without literally a redesign, adding steps or non-slip mats or skids or something. I'll leave it to them to figure it out. That's not my job, but it definitely is something that I remember very gingerly walking the area, and I'm not an old guy, and I was worried about my footing and had knee surgery. So many years ago, not recently, but many years ago, I had knee surgery. So my knees are gimpy, and I found it challenging trying to safely get in and out of that pool. So I hope they address that in some way, because that's really not only just a pet peeve, but it's a safety concern, and I just don't know how the ship architects and the sign off of that was just granted, because it is to me it's really dangerous. But anyway, I don't want to leave on a down note. I enjoyed my cruise. The experience was great. I think the value is certainly there, and yeah, please based off of my recommendation, you should go ahead and book yourself a cruise. I wouldn't recommend a 5-day. I think you really need 7 or more days on this cruise line in order to soak it all in. And with that, thank you again. If you find the information I'm sharing with you useful, please like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, and I'll bring you some more tips and tricks and hacks on cruising in the future. With that, thank you again, and I hope you're enjoying the rest of your cruise vacation, or any vacation, because it's not all about cruising all the time, but certainly enjoying the vacations that you put together. And I hope you find most of the tips that I'm giving you on travel and coaching useful. And with that, until next time. Remember to like and subscribe and click that bell